my dear friends, again on our way to, it's a bit now awkward if I say on our way to Fruška Gora, because we are now going the opposite direction from Fruška Gora southwards, but only to join the Belgrade-Zagreb highway, which will bring us quicker to our final destination, which is around the Ruma, or more specifically Irig, as we will be visiting some wineries there. We started discussion about trying to find some similarities initially between the two cities of Belgrade and Bratislava, but then we ended up talking about the similarities between two countries and even some remembrance on the way how the countries, because both our countries got separated back in the 90s or beginning of the 90s, but in a very, very different way. We have been unlucky not to follow the Czechoslovakian model and separate peacefully, provided that the separation was needed at all. But okay, now let's not go back. Maybe what would be interesting to talk about is the current situation. My guests actually are living in Praha, or Prague, which is one of the European capitals the most polluted by tourists, if I can say so, which really is sometimes annoying. Okay, me also going there, I'm a tourist there, but it's a bit annoying. There are streets, especially leading to the Carlos Bridge, where you literally cannot walk during the high, let's say, tourist season. We were there at the relatively low tourist season, but it was still not possible to walk this Carlos Street, etc. So Belgrade is getting there. We are getting to the exit to Belgrade-Zagreb highway, but the number of tourists increases in Belgrade, has started increasing over the past, more than 5 years, definitely rapidly. We are not even close to Prague. As Prague, I don't know how many, but I believe after, or maybe even before, Paris, Athens, maybe. It's probably among the top 3 capitals in Europe according to the number of tourists visited. I guess the situation now with COVID breaking up is a bit different, so I will be asking a friend of mine to comment maybe on the lifestyle of average, let's say, so middle-aged population now in Prague. What are they? Are they also annoyed by the number of tourists? Are they escaping the town and probably living somewhere in the countryside as you do, or what are the average, let's say, middle-aged population? How they consider the situation with the number of tourists in Prague, etc.
In the old normal times, you would actually have a chance to meet somebody in the downtown Prague and actually hear Czech language, which is quite surprised because usually it doesn't happen. The most spoken language would be Italian and Russian most of the time, especially on all these exposed places. Now it's in a different situation because COVID changed quite a lot. So now sometimes you even meet Czech people, sometimes you even recognize somebody. On the other hand, we almost don't have any taxis left because they all died out thanks to the dying out tourism business. that all happens in the center of Prague. So in the other areas, which are still very nice, but they are not so visited by tourists because they just don't know why they should go there. The weekends are like totally empty because the average Prague person will use every chance to disappear from the city for the weekend. So then, as of Friday afternoon, suddenly you can find a spot for parking. You can suddenly walk out and breathe, and you can start being afraid that somebody kills you and nobody will find you for the next 3 days because nobody is just crossing the street. But then again, with Sunday night, it all returns back, and the lines of cars going into Prague on Saturday night are quite scary. Somebody can start thinking if the city is gonna ever explode by this overinflation of people. But the really smart people, they left Prague forever and they don't actually regret it at all, like myself and many others did. So by a little chance, and especially now after the COVID situation and being able to work remotely or being active remotely without having to be present in person, now living really outside of Prague and not having to go into the city is quite a nice bonus to the lifestyle.
But I'm curious now, how often do you actually go to downtown Prague?
Well, myself, I'm not really a typical example, so I would not use myself, but I think I have been downtown Prague already this year. Let me think. I think it happened. So I was in downtown Prague.
This year?
This year, yes.
Once, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's truly.
Which doesn't mean that you should not go there. I mean, it's beautiful, even for a person who lives there, it's quite nice. Some of the people living in Prague, they actually recently found out that Prague is actually nice because they have never been to the touristic places. so it really is interesting to go and see those places, and really Prague is very nice to visit and even nice to live in it. It's just that usually you don't work in the center and you don't really have a reason to go there because shopping you do somewhere else, your work is somewhere else, and for the sake of the traffic and everything you just don't head downtown if it's not really necessary. But now during the COVID times it was very nice for the people who were smart enough previously and emigrated from the city, because when the lockdown was introduced, I cannot imagine living with several kids somewhere in a beton block house somewhere in the outskirts of Prague, having a lockdown and not being able to leave the apartment and not able to let the kids run for a while and having to wear a face mask for all the time. That had to be quite stressing. Whereas for somebody living outside, we pretty much have not noticed any big difference, just because we did not have to come in touch with other people almost never.
True. I don't know what is how to say, the population of persons foreigners that came and stayed in Prague, but not as really true business people, but rather how to say, the people that are doing mostly gray zone economy. Like I know the example of Athens, for instance. They had quite an influx of Arabian and other type of people that are now doing essentially, well, all the gray or even, okay, in some cases black zone, but for sure gray zone. I didn't notice so many. I'm not a racist, definitely, but what I'm trying to say that that type of people that came to Europe in essence in the 90s or even before were not mostly the intellectuals, so to say, and they came with an idea of dealing with smuggling or I don't know, dealing drugs, etc. So I don't know how polluted is Prague with this regard.
I think it is, but it's not so visible. So you can find those sorts of people around the Václav Square, so really downtown Prague, and you will find some people from Africa trying to catch you to go to a strip bar or sell you some stuff of different quality. I'm sure they exist also elsewhere, but myself I'm not so sensitive to identify those types. But definitely it is quite booming. I have seen some documentary on it that it's very active. But again, mostly with tourists. So I think they also had some troubles now with the COVID times where the tourists were not present, because the locals, they don't really have a need to go to the most central space of Prague to talk to some alien to buy their stuff. They already have their own network. So all those people were living mostly out of tourists, I suppose, and that definitely had a big impact on their lifestyle or work style in the recent months.
Okay, but because I'm trying to compare, but I didn't notice anything similar when I last visited Prague. Because, for instance, in Athens, there is a major area in the city center. One of the two main squares was for decades now occupied by this type of people. So it was practically unbearable for the local population to live there anymore. So they all emigrated from this part of town. And when I'm talking two main squares, I'm talking about, like, if I would be to draw parallel, it is like Vaslavsky Namesti and I don't know. So this kind of a city center, it's really city center. So it was practically unsafe for normal people to even walk in the afternoon, not talking about night walk, which is, to me, if I compare it with Belgrade, okay, the 90s are the worst decade probably ever since the Second World War for Belgrade, but at least we did not have such an influx of this kind of people, so to say. And walking, I don't know what are your impressions about Belgrade, but have you seen a lot of this profile of people, regardless of if they are locals or foreigners, if they are black or white? As a tourist, did you face somebody approaching you, trying to sell you something or whatever?
In Belgrade? Yeah, there was now a Swiss stand, probably a Swiss advertising campaign, come and visit Switzerland. So yeah, they were trying to approach people. And I would say that they also would have some different sorts of stuff to give to the people. But other than this, no. I have surprisingly met some Serbian people, which was surprising to meet them downtown in a city. But no, I haven't seen anything which I would consider being unsafe, apart of me becoming fat from all the great food here.
Thanks. Yeah, definitely. If you ask a foreigner what are their first impressions about Belgrade, probably the first three places would be nice women, great food, and then great nightlife combined with the nice weather. I don't know if your impression is similar or different, but this is a typical answer of all foreigners, let's say, visiting Belgrade.
Possibly, yes. What do you think? The three best things about Belgrade.
Well, from my experience, and from some documentaries as well about foreigners, what do they like in Belgrade, and of course, I would say the very fact that Belgrade, as no other capital in Europe, lies on two such great rivers and practically on the very confluence of two great rivers. Me having traveled quite a lot, I would say more than the average Serb, I did not see any other city in Europe, the capital, having such a geographical. Okay, let's leave aside Istanbul, which, first of all, is not the capital, and Istanbul is a unique place worldwide, definitely. But now it's a questionable. Only half of it is in Europe, half is in Asia. But this is essentially what I would also comment for Belgrade. As one of the unique, unique also exceed to, prolong this video for too long. Let's make a cut here. I'm trying to make shortcuts, but I simply cannot. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching.